The eye, that horrible growing sense of a hostile will that strove with great power to pierce all shadows of cloud and earth and flesh, and to see you, to pin you under its deadly gaze, naked, immovable. So thin, so frail and thin the veils were become that still warded it off. Frodo knew just where the present habitation and heart of that will now was, as certainly as a man can tell the direction of the sun with his eyes shut. He was facing it, and its potency beat upon his brow.
Welcome to the Wayward Wizards podcast. We are reading J.R.R. Tolkien's The Two Towers, Book 4, Chapter 2, The Passage of the Marshes. My name is Logan.
And my name is Zach. This is a really interesting chapter. I'd forgotten how much I missed being with Frodo and Sam.
They're the guys that we love. It's true.
Well, good thing, because we're going to be with them for quite a while.
I think it's really strange the way the book is structured.
It's very strange. It's a very strange book.
In fact, the first time, I love Frodo and Sam. But the first time I read this, I remember getting to the end of the part with, the end of book 3.
Book 3, yeah.
And then it rewinding to Frodo and Sam. And I was sort of like, oh.
Come on. Let's move the story forward.
This is just going to be with these guys now? You know?
Yeah.
It's really odd. But I think the benefit is that you really get on the journey with, right? Like with Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, I think he struggled with how to present the story when there were so many characters spread over such a large distance and there was so much happening. I think, the movies just intercut between the two main groups.
That's how fantasy books do it now.
Yeah. I think he just realized that would be just incredibly difficult to do in a satisfactory way. And so he decided to do this big split. But yeah, it is. I like it as it is, but I can see why, like in the movie, they decided not to do that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. One of the things I love about Lord of the Rings is that it's finished.
Yeah.
It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes.
Everything has been considered.
Yes.
The man who wrote it made choices, and the choices are like documented, a lot of them.
Yes.
Which is part of the beauty of it, right? If you really want to get into the weeds on it, you can.
Yes.
And it all just exists. And I love that about it.
Yes.
And I love that even though there's times where I'm like, this could have been different, or maybe this is weak, or that's strong, or whatever.
I wouldn't change it.
We have it, right? And why would I change it?
Yeah.
And so, it's really fun to kind of delve into that. But I also just think it's lucky to have this object that we just get to contend with. It's a cool thing. So
agreed. So last week we left with Gollum making a promise by the precious, and Frodo
not on the precious,
but by it. I still don't 100% understand the difference between swearing on something versus swearing by something.
We don't make a lot of oaths these days.
Yeah. We're not an oath-keeping, breaking society. Yeah, you're so right. But Frodo chooses to take Gollum Smeagol as his guide, as his and Sam's guide. But we made the distinction. I think it's an important difference between the movie and the book. Frodo never gives his blind trust to Smeagol.
He's
wary
than that, wiser.
There is an example in this chapter where he falls asleep when he doesn't mean to, and Sam is worried that Gollum is gone off to betray them, and Frodo's like, I really don't think we have to worry about that right now. But we saw him exercise this kind of command over Gollum last chapter, and I think it's more of the his own self-assurance and his power over Smeagol than it is like trust in him as a person that he's not going to betray them. I think that he knows that could happen at any time, but he has this kind of assurance that, if he says jump, Gollum will jump.
I also like in that section, Frodo's kind of like, yeah, he didn't throttle us in our sleeps and eat us, and we needed the rest. Clearly, we needed the rest.
Yeah.
And so let's just take it as a gift.
I love Gollum's like, Hobbit says sleep so sweetly, and
yeah, that's so funny. Yeah,
just watching him sleep, little creep.
Creepazoid.
But he begins to lead them down into these. The word that he used last chapter was fens, which is just another word for marshes. And so in this chapter, Gollum leads them across this treacherous marshland that we find out most people avoid because it's essentially haunted. And because of their size and because of Gollum's knowledge, they're able to find a way through this kind of impassable marsh. He uses the word noisome several times in this chapter. I 100% remember being a kid and asking my dad what noisome meant, and he was like, I don't know. Like, it's just not a word that we use very often. That was back in the 90s, kids. We didn't have the internet to look up.
Can't look it up on Wikipedia.
We didn't have a dictionary on hand at our house, I guess. But I always thought it meant loud. So, but it just means stinky, smelly, foul.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So you want to jump right into the text?
Gollum is eager.
Yes, he is. Eager to please.
When he wants to please, he's eager to please, and he is quick. Frodo and Sam, they struggle to keep up with him.
Yes.
But Gollum leads the way, and he leads the way very skillfully.
Yes.
He knows where he's going. He's been here before. He's so eager that he can even kind of sing, even though it's about either how hungry he is or how much his feet hurt.
And how much he's wishing for fish.
Yeah.
He's like famished, right?
Right. And this, we talk about Tolkien's logistical mind.
Yeah.
Quite a bit on this podcast. But again, I think it underlines Tolkien's attention to detail. And his way of talking about that here is through Gollum and then through, Sam.
Yes.
But it also kind of piques Sam's wariness about Gollum, because he's like, this guy's gonna eat us.
Yeah, he's like, he's so hungry, like he's not against like eating some hobbits in their sleep.
Yeah, and I love that. It just seems like, and I know that it's not effortless, but it feels effortless. That the characterization of Gollum, the characterization of Sam, the logistics about food, right? All these things are so just tied together and like woven so perfectly. And it's again, it's just part of the joy, I think, of reading this stuff.
And Lord of the Rings looms so large in my mind that I often forget that it's a sequel to The Hobbit. And for most people reading this, The Hobbit was their primary relationship to Tolkien, and this was just kind of like a deepening of that. Right. In my mind, Lord of the Rings is always like top, and then I think of The Hobbit almost like a prequel, but it's, it was the original text. So there's lots of callbacks here to The Hobbit. He sings this song about how much he wishes to eat fish, and then he goes, he guessed it long ago. Baggins guessed it. Yeah. And then he recounts the riddle about fish.
Yeah, riddles in the dark, right?
Yeah. Alive without breath, as cold as death, never thirsting, ever drinking, clad in mail, never clinking. That's the riddle that, I think Bilbo answered pretty simply. But the other thing about that section is, and this just occurred to me, wasn't the stakes of the riddle game that if Bilbo lost, that Gollum would eat him?
Yeah.
So that's right here too. Like,
that's
funny. This is exactly what's on Sam's mind.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's really funny.
He goes, yeah, he looks fair famished. Not too dainty to try what hobbit tastes like if there ain't no fish, I'll wager. Supposing as he could catch us napping. Well, he won't. Not Samwise Gamgee for one. That's not true, Sam.
Nope.
You're...
Pretty easy to say that when you're not tired, but boy, when you are, it just takes you over. Of course, they're also not walking during the day. They're walking at night.
Yeah, so they can hide from the yellow face.
Yeah, yellow face. And Smeagol's afraid of every light, right? He doesn't like the yellow face. He almost equally dislikes the white face or the moon. And so they're walking at night, which I think, takes an extra effort.
Yes.
And even though they're following Gollum, to keep up with him is difficult, and it becomes increasingly difficult as the chapter goes on for Frodo.
But Frodo, he's kind to Smeagol. We mentioned last time the tendency for Frodo to call this character Smeagol and Sam to call him Gollum.
Or the closest he can get is the Smeagol.
Right. This Smeagol, Mr. Gollum.
And then at other times he just refers to him as it.
Yeah, there was an it versus he distinction last episode. But Frodo says to him, we must take a little food. Are you hungry, Smeagol? We have very little to share, but we will spare you what we can. And, in a couple pages here, we find out that's true. Sam starts sort of taking inventory of how much food they have left and figures they have about 3 weeks worth of food. And he says, and that's with a light tooth and a tight belt. So Frodo offering some of the limbas to Gollum is true kindness, because it means he's going to have less food to eat later.
How many weeks away are we from Mount Doom?
So the ring is destroyed on March 25th, which is significant because it's the date of the Annunciation. So it's the day that...
Yeah, the day Mary finds out that she is going to, be pregnant.
Bear the Messiah. And so that was clearly a very intentional choice by Tolkien to have this like momentous occasion happen on this day in the calendar. You pointed out to me earlier that the Council of Elrond, they depart from Rivendell on Christmas Day, December 25th. So they depart on December 25th and they meet Gollum. I'd have to look back on my notes to quadruple check this, but I'm 90% sure they meet Gollum on February 29th.
Okay.
And they start going through the Dead Marshes on the 1st of March.
Got you.
So 24 days from now is when they'll destroy the ring.
It's really it's a way more compressed timeline than I had like internalized reading the book and I suppose, watching the movies as well. It almost feels like a journey that takes years.
But it's just really like 3 months, huh? If it's December 25th.
It's just a few months.
March 25th.
And I think that at this point to like realize that they're just a few weeks from, going into Mordor and destroying the ring, it makes the sort of, it makes the story more immediate, and it makes the kind of threat of Mordor more dangerous, that it's just these days of walking that is going to get them there. Anyway, I think that is just well worthwhile to consider, right? How many days is this actually taking? Because it's not a years-long journey. It's just a few months.
Right. Yeah, so they have, let's see, so 24 days. So they have just over 3 weeks of walking to do before they get there. But it does just show Frodo's true generosity that he's willing to spare what little food they have to help feed Gollum.
Yeah.
And Gollum at first, because he's so famished, is like really excited by this. He's like, got any fish? Like what you got? Like, he goes, we are famished. Yes, famished we are, precious. What is it that eats? Have they nice fishes? His tongue lolled out between his sharp yellow teeth, licking his colorless lips. But of course they don't have fish. What they have is limbas. Frodo says, no, we have got no fish. We have only this. And he held out the wafer of limbas. Interesting, again, they use the word wafer, which calls to mind the Eucharist. And he goes, and water, if the water here is fit to drink. And Gollum says, "Oh yes, the water's nice to drink. We got to drink it while we can. Again, we're about to enter into this land of thirst." But he says of the limbus, he's like, "Is it crunchable? Is it tasty?" So Frodo breaks off a portion of the wafer and he hands it to Gollum in the leaf wrapping, and Gollum smells the leaf, and it causes this spasm of disgust to come over him. And he says, "Oh, leaves out of elf country. Gah, they stink." He climbed on those trees and he couldn't wash the smell off his hands. My nice hands. Dropping the leaf, he took a corner of the limbus and nibbled at it. He spat, and a fit of coughing shook him.
Is the reference here again to his hands? I mean, is that like some reference to the trauma that we heard about last week, him being tortured by Sauron? It's just, I just noted it because it sticks out in the last chapter.
He does talk about his hands quite a bit, doesn't he?
But then he talks about it here too. But maybe there's something about his hands that are kind of like, he's always grasping and wheedling. They're almost like worms or something like that. His fingers are long, and bony.
Well, it's almost like he doesn't have anything, like he doesn't have any possessions. All that he had for so long was just the ring. So it's almost like you can just imagine him like wringing his hand, like, just like he is very focused on his hands. But yeah, if you endure some sort of like torture like that, yeah, this is an interesting observation that he does seem very focused on his hands. This is a component of Smeagol's nature that I'd like to point out. He says, "Ugh, no, you try to choke poor Smeagol. Dust and ashes, he can't eat that. He must starve." But Smeagol doesn't mind. Nice hobbits. Smeagol has promised. He will starve. He can't eat hobbits' food. He will starve. Poor thin Smeagol. So he says he will starve, like, multiple times there. Yeah. It's like passive aggressive. It's
himself, and
it's
martyr complex.
Yes, he thinks very highly of himself and his like suffering. But he's also clearly trying to make them feel bad. He's casting them in an intentionally poor light and kind of willfully misrepresenting Frodo's generosity as, "You're trying to kill me." He's like, "You're trying to choke me." And so yeah, he's just a despicable, like, we all know someone who's like this, where it's like, "No, it's fine. It's fine. No, I'll do it. Nobody help me. I'm the only one who does anything around here. Nobody help me."
Yeah. There's like a resentment, resenting somebody else's attempt to help you,
but also getting some sort of like sick satisfaction out of your own suffering.
Exactly.
And the way that you can use that to weaponize other people.
Frodo doesn't really have it, though. He's not going to take that guilt onto himself. And he says, "I'm sorry, but I can't help you, I'm afraid. I think this food would do you good if you would try. But perhaps you can't even try. Not yet, anyway." Yeah. I think the Eucharist theology is really playing in there.
Yeah.
This food would do you good. Yeah. Beyond its capacity to, give you energy and fill your belly in some spiritual way. But he's not spiritually
capable.
Yeah, capable of taking it. But even here, Frodo has some like faith.
Yeah.
That if he continues to like show up and be loyal to this, almost this pledge that he gave to Gandalf in the last chapter, or to God.
Yeah.
That if he continues to show up, it will do good for Smeagol, and maybe he'll be able to accept Lembas eventually.
Huh.
And I think it's really, it shows kind of Frodo's maturity.
Yes.
That's another difference with the movies, is that Frodo is actually the most mature person among the hobbits.
Yeah, he's the oldest, yeah.
And the fact that he has that maturity to say, like, I'm not going to, you can like martyr yourself all you want, but I'm offering you food and you can take it or leave it.
There's something so paternal about, I think this would do you some good.
Yeah.
If you would try.
Just give it a taste,
Yeah. Yeah. Don't tell me it's yucky until you try it.
It's like, how old are you? 3?
Yeah.
Well, take 3 bites then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful observation. I think the connection to the Eucharist is something we should take seriously, and there's a lot of weight on the not yet anyway. Whereas like perhaps you can't even try, not yet. There's a hopefulness in that I think it's a really beautiful observation. So Frodo and Sam eat on their own.
Sam decides that it tastes better than it ever has because he's attending to his flavor, and I think he's happy that he has something and Gollum doesn't.
Yeah, Gollum just goes off on his own and whimpers. He goes and pouts.
Yeah.
Sam is like, hey, get some sleep, Mr. Frodo. I'll call you when I can't keep my eyelids propped up. Turn in about, same as before, while he's loose. So he's saying, like, we'll have one person who's, keeping watch, and we'll have one person who's sleeping because we can't tie up Gollum. But Frodo says there is a change in him, but just what kind of change and how deep, I'm not sure yet. Seriously, though, I don't think there's any need for fear at present. So there it is again. It's like, there's not need for fear dash at present. So he recognizes, like, okay, I'm not going to exactly trust this guy with my life, but also I don't think right now we have any reason to worry. How funny is this bit here where Gollum falls asleep and Sam is keeping watch, and then he comes and he whispers fish in his ear to see if he's really asleep?
That's kind of cruel.
I know.
It's a little bit, I'm like, come on, Sam, you're better than that, dude.
But Gollum doesn't stir. It says he doesn't even have a catch in his breathing. So Sam believes that he's asleep. And it says here, Sam scratched his head. Must really be asleep. And if I was like Gollum, he wouldn't wake up never again. And he says he restrained the thoughts of his sword and the rope that sprang to his mind and went and sat down by his master.
Yeah.
So Sam contemplates murdering Gollum in his sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not Sam's best moment here. I also don't know how earnest Sam is about the idea that he would murder Gollum, in part because he tied that loose knot, in the last chapter.
Yeah, and looking forward to the entrance to the Cracks of Doom, he has a chance to kill Gollum then.
Yeah.
He has Sting, and Gollum begs for mercy, and Sam doesn't kill him.
Right.
So I think there's a softness to Sam, even though he kind of puts up a tough front. But he's not wrong to distrust him. I think Frodo is being a little naive.
Yeah, he is.
Sam
both.
can't possibly know that Sam can't possibly know that Gollum is not going to betray them. And Gollum does betray them. In this very chapter, he starts wondering if she can take care of them. So the plan to waylay them in Shelob's lair is present from the very beginning. They've only been with him for a few hours at this point. So he's not wrong to distrust him. But I do think it's interesting. It's very subtle to say he restrained the thoughts of his sword. So that's pretty dark from Samwise Gamgee there.
It is. So Sam has just sat down by Master Frodo, who told him he was only to give him 2 hours to sleep and not more, but Sam falls asleep too.
Yeah.
And he leaps to his feet, sees that Frodo is still asleep, lying now stretched on his side. Gollum is nowhere to be seen. And then Sam starts in on the negative self-talk. It says, various reproachful names for himself came to mind, drawn from the gaffer's large paternal word hoard. All the mean names his dad has called him growing up.
Ninny Hammer, Noodles, and his very name, Samwise.
And so we get a little more evidence that maybe the gaffer was not the easiest father to have around. And now Sam picks up Frodo's vocabulary for Gollum and says, poor wretch, he said half remorsefully. Now I wonder where he's got to.
And then Gollum pops his head over the...
I'm here.
Said, not far, not far. He looked up and saw the shape of Gollum's large head and ears against the evening sky. Here, what are you doing? Said Sam, with suspicions coming back as soon as he saw the shape. Smeagol is hungry. Be back soon. Come back now. Hi, come back. But Gollum had vanished.
Yeah, he's out of there.
And that, of course, wakes up Frodo.
Frodo asks for the time, which is kind of funny because I feel like you wouldn't ask for the time unless you had a watch. Although maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that seems like a pretty. I mean, we've talked about some of the anachronisms that the hobbits, kind of live more in like a Victorian age, and everybody else is in a medieval
Yes.
context. But yeah, what's the time? And Sam he's like, I don't know. It's after sundown.
Yeah.
And Gollum's gone off, and we fell asleep. But
he says he's hungry. It's like, yeah, he is hungry. Look at the skinny little.
But for Frodo,
frog.
like everything is kind of copacetic. He's just like, don't worry. There's no help for it. He'll come back. The promise is going to hold for a while yet.
The promise will hold yet a while, and he won't leave his precious anyway. So, yeah, the promise. That's how Gollum's oath will be referred to in kind of the coming pages. The promise of the precious.
I wrote next to this ring psychology that like maybe Frodo has some insight into, Gollum's psychology because they share this, obsession, fascination, capture by the ring.
What did it say last chapter? Their minds could
reach out to each other.
Reach out to one another. Is that what it said? Let me find the exact quote. It says they could reach one another's minds.
And I don't think Frodo can read Sam's mind. They just know each other well enough for him to know this, but he says, don't think of any of your gaffer's hard names.
Yeah.
I know you're running yourself down right now, and you really don't need to do that.
Don't we all have our names that we've been called throughout our life kind of running through our minds at all times?
Unfortunately, yes.
So here's where we get to the question that we mentioned earlier. Sam's running through the inventory of their food and asking, exactly how long do you think this is going to take?
Yeah.
He goes, how long is it going to take us to do this job? And when it's done, what are we going to do then? He says, this way bread keeps you on your legs in a wonderful way, though it doesn't satisfy the innards proper, as you might say. But you have to eat some of it every day and it doesn't grow. I reckon we've got enough to last, say, 3 weeks or so, and that with a tight belt and a light tooth, mind you. We've been a bit free with it so far. And do you want to read what Frodo says in response?
Yeah. This part is really sad.
It is sad.
I don't know how long we shall take to finish, said Frodo. We were miserably delayed in the hills. But Samwise Gamgee, my dear hobbit, indeed, Sam, my dearest friend of friends, I do not think we need to give thought to what comes after that. To do the job, as you put it, what hope is there that we ever shall? And if we do, who knows what will come of that? If the one goes into the fire and we are at hand? I ask you, Sam, are we ever likely to need bread again? I think not. If we can nurse our limbs to bring us to Mount Doom, that is all we can do. More than I can, I begin to feel.
So we established a little while ago that it's going to take them like 3 weeks and a couple days to actually get to the end of their. So I think Frodo is also kind of saying like, yeah, we might have enough food to get. I think Sam is thinking consistently for the rest of the book, we need to save food because we need to have enough food to get back home. And like, if they have 3 weeks for the food, they really only do have enough food to get to Mount Doom itself.
Yeah.
Not back.
But this moves Sam. He can't even say anything. He just nods silently. He takes Frodo's hand, and it says that he didn't kiss it, but his tears fell on Frodo's hand.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then he turns away and, kind of cuffs his nose to get the snot off his nose.
Yeah, he doesn't have a tissue.
From his tears, and he stamps around and he kind of, tries to whistle. He's like trying to like psych himself up.
He's shown some emotion to Frodo, and now he's trying to like play it off. He's like, yeah, I'm tough. I'm not upset. I'm going to do this job with you, Mr. Frodo. You don't need to worry about me. He says, where's that dreaded creature? And then very short after, Gollum returns after having eaten some truly terrible meal. Sam is absolutely sure.
Worms or something, probably.
Beetles or snakes or whatever.
Yeah.
And this line from Gollum, I think, is interesting. He goes, better now? Are we rested? Ready to go on? Nice hobbits. They sleep beautifully. Trust Smeagol now? Very, very good. So he's like, hey, guys, guess what? I didn't kill you in your sleep.
Aren't we all buddies now?
Hey, do you trust me yet? Like, I totally could have killed you guys back then. Yeah. And I was super hungry too. I would have eaten you, but, we're good now, right?
They sleep beautifully.
Oof. Yeah, God knows what he was thinking about while they were sleeping.
I do kind of imagine hobbits sleeping like children.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody comes into the room and sees me sleeping and just thinks, oh, that's so beautiful. Whereas like when I look at my kids being asleep, I'm like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Well, when you came and visited my house a few weeks ago, you were staying in my like little guest apartment, and I hate to say,
could you hear me snoring?
I went in and I watched you sleep a little bit. You slept beautifully.
That's.
Do you trust me now?
No.
I didn't kill you in your sleep.
I'm a little weirded out.
They start the next stage of their journey.
Yeah.
And they're moving towards these stinky, smelly marshes, these fens. It says, on either side and in front, wide fens and mires now lay, stretching away southward and eastward into the dim half-light. Mist curled in smoke from dark and noisome pools. The reek of them hung stifling in the still air. Far away, now almost due south, the mountain walls of Mordor loomed, like a black bar of rugged clouds floating above a dangerous fog-bound sea. That's an all-timer piece of Tolkien prose right there.
Yeah, this is again, it's Tolkien, the landscape painter.
Yes.
We have a sentence that starts out the next section that I think you really don't want to read, which is, the hobbits were now wholly in the hands of Gollum.
Yes.
So we've talked about Gollum's hands and how nice he thinks they are and how kind of disgusting they are in some ways.
Yeah, how many orcs is that pair of hands strangled?
Exactly. But they are wholly in the hands of Gollum, and they really need him at this point, because if they go a different way, if they had gone a different way, they could have crossed this bare plain, the Dagger Lad, and gotten to the gates of Mordor that way, but they would have been completely exposed. And so here they actually are sheltered.
Yes.
And
by the mists and the fact that nobody wants to be there because they're haunted.
Yeah, by the mists, and nobody goes through them because they're haunted, and because they're small enough not to like sink into the like fens, right?
Yeah. It mentions that they're able to do it because of how small they are, how light they are.
Right.
So Daggerlad, this marsh was not always a marsh. There were marshes that were beyond this area. This is the area, call to mind the prologue of the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring movie, when the elves are fighting the orcs, when Sauron comes out and, hits everybody with that huge like hammer mace thing. This is the location of the last battle of the last alliance of elves and men, who were led by Gil-galad and Elendil. And this is where they were killed by Sauron. Gil-galad and Elendil were killed in this area. And so hundreds and hundreds of elves and men and orcs died in this spot. That's the place where, as time passed, these marshes kind of expanded and began to cover these graves of elves and men and orcs who died in that final battle where Sauron lost the ring. So we are really careful on the pod not to suggest that any of the themes or, locations in the book are like somehow direct allegorical connections to the politics of Tolkien's time. So people were constantly asking, the one that we mentioned over and over again is Sauron Hitler? Is the ring the atomic bomb? And Tolkien was super annoyed by all those questions. He thought they were so dumb and so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And he always made the distinction between allegory and applicability. He's like, these themes, because they're mythological, are applicable to all times and all places. That's what makes myth so important.
Mm-hmm.
But in one of the mini letters where someone wrote asking like, hey, I think I cracked it. Like the ring is the atomic bomb, right? And you can kind of just like almost like hear Tolkien like
rolling his eyes.
Yeah, like through the page. But he says that of all the things in the book, the section that holds the closest like resemblance to his own experience is the Dead Marshes, which he says are directly influenced by his experience on the Somme. These, horrendous muddy fields that lie between trenches in France in World War I, where he would have seen bodies, under shallow water, in these craters made by mortars. The smell, you can imagine the smell of that battle plane. So I think of all places, this is the place to kind of picture World War I trench warfare.
People in the trenches, I mean, their feet would rot.
Yeah.
While they were alive, because it was so wet and horrifying and disgusting.
Yeah.
And it was actually worse in the Allied trenches than it was in the.
Yeah. I mean, their feet are getting chewed on by rats as they're trying to sleep.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that makes sense that's what he would have been thinking of when he's describing this area.
And he wasn't wounded in battle, but he got extremely sick in the trenches. He got trench fever, it was called back then.
Not something you want.
No.
Well, we were talking about the hobbits being holy in the hands of Gollum, and it says that, as they're walking through this area, Smeagol kind of boasts, since the time that he was found and taken to Mordor and things like that. He says, Smeagol has used his eyes since then. And he says that he knows other ways, not so quick, but better.
If we don't want him to see, he's like, his eye is all over this place, and I got caught once, but I won't get caught again.
I'm not going to get caught again. And we get a description of the way that he leads them through. And I actually wrote Strider in the margin, because the way that he picks his path through this land is really skillful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he sometimes holds up his hand and halts them. You can kind of imagine Aragorn doing that, right? While he went forward a little, crouching, testing the ground with fingers or toes, and merely listening with one ear pressed to the earth.
That is a great comparison.
And
I didn't catch that.
That's exactly what Aragorn does when he's trying to find the Merry and Pippin.
Another connection to Strider is that this is where Aragorn captures Gollum.
Right.
When he's, tasked by Gandalf with finding him. So that's another thing to kind of think about in this section. These Dead Marshes is like, he spent a lot of time here. In fact, that's how Aragorn caught him. But this is it's a smelly, bare, lifeless place. And Sam at one point says, not a bird. It's like, there's not any living creatures here except for like worms and snakes. And Gollum says, no birds. Nice birds. He licks his teeth. No birds here. There are snakeses, wormses, things in the pool. Lots of things, lots of nasty things. No birds, he ended sadly. Sam looks on him with distaste. So he's like, yeah, nice crunchable birds. None here for me to eat.
He'd probably eat some bones and all.
And here's the bit where it says, they walked slowly, stooping, keeping close in line, following attentively every move that Gollum made. It says the fins grew more wet, opening into wide, stagnant mirrors. Mirrors?
Mirrors, I think.
Or is
Mirrors.
it? Yeah, mirrors. Opening into wide, stagnant mirrors, among which it grew more and more, sinking into gurgling mud. The travelers were light, or maybe none of them would have ever found a way through.
Now we get into the place where it really becomes the Dead Marshes.
Yeah, the lights, like little candles. You know, they see them, and I think this image in the movies is really beautifully done.
Yeah.
Sam looks out at the lights and he asks Gollum, "What is all this? These lights, they're all around us now. Are we trapped? Who are they?" It's an interesting question. Who are they?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Gollum says, "Yes, they are all around us. The tricksy lights, candles of corpses. Yes, yes. Don't you heed them. Don't look. Don't follow them. Where's the master?" And he looks around and sees that Frodo has lagged, and he seems lost in thought, looking at the pale lights. His hands hanging stiff at his sides, water and slime were dripping from them. And Sam jumps in and says, "Hey, don't look at them. Gollum says that we mustn't. We have to keep with him and get out of this cursed place as quick as we can."
I think Frodo's already taken a look.
Well, yeah, it says, "All right." And he says, as if returning out of a dream. So he's already become kind of entranced by them, and Sam kind of shakes him out of it just at the right moment.
But his arms being wet makes me think, did he stick his face in the water?
Yeah. I get the sense that they're having to kind of like almost like
scramble.
crawl.
Yeah, that could be. I could see that too. But it really does seem like an entrancing thing, that there's some desire, or you're kind of compelled toward death, or toward that mystery to like see what's going on. And
Yes.
when you're in a dark place and there's lights, I think you're kind of compelled to go toward the light too in some way.
Yeah, it's like a moth, you're drawn to the flame.
But for each candle to be a corpse, or vice versa,
Yeah.
is really, it's pretty gothic, this description. It's kind of scary.
Sam trips. He catches his foot on a root, and he falls heavily on his hands, which sank deep into sticky ooze, so his face was brought close to the surface of the dark mirror. It says there was a faint hiss. A noisome smell went up, the lights flickered and danced and twirled. For a moment, the water below him looked like some window glazed with grimy glass through which he was peering. Wrenching his hands out of the bog, he sprang back with a cry. "There are dead things, dead faces in the water."
Gollum laughs. The Dead Marshes, yes, that's their name. You should not look in when the candles are lit. No
It's like,
kidding.
"I told you." And Sam says, "Who are they?" And Frodo, in a dreamlike voice, so again, he seems kind of entranced. He goes, "I don't know, but I've seen them too, in the pools when the candles were lit. They lie in all the pools, pale faces, deep, deep under the dark water. I saw them, grim faces and evil, and noble faces and sad. Many faces proud and fair, and weeds in their silver hair. But all foul, all rotting, all dead. A fell light is in them."
It's very poetic there. Many faces proud and fair, and weeds in their silver hair.
Beautiful. Frodo says, "I know not who they are, but I thought I saw their men and elves and orcs beside them."
Kind of, I think it bears paying attention to, humans and elves and orcs all felled in the same place and lying together. Some equality in death or something,
Mm-hmm.
or in war.
Yeah, and that's what he would have experienced on the Somme as well.
Exactly. The French and the Austrians, the Germans and the English or British, all together
All mangled together.
in the same, horrible mud.
The noisome misty, you get the images of like, like mustard gas, like, kind of hovering over this wet, body covered mud. And Gollum says, there was a great battle long ago. Yes, so they told him when Smeagol was young, when I was young before the Precious came. So he can remember a time before, even though this is hundreds of years ago now. It was a great battle. Tall men with long swords and terrible elves and orcses shrieking. They fought in the plain for days and months at the Black Gates, but the marshes have grown since then, swallowed up the graves, always creeping, creeping. Sam says, but that was an age and more ago. The dead can't be really there. Is it some devilry hatched in the dark land? Gollum says, who knows? You cannot reach them. You cannot touch them. We tried once. Yes, precious, I tried once. But you cannot reach them. Only shapes to see, perhaps, not to touch. No, precious, all dead. It says that Sam looked darkly at him and shuddered, thinking that he guessed why Smeagol had tried to touch them. Gross.
So we have to keep going through this horrible land, but slowly and carefully. It seems they're able to keep up with Gollum. They make their way through, but then we have to contend with something even more horrible than the Dead Marshes, which is a black rider on a winged steed.
So this is the second time now that a black rider has kind of burst out of Mordor near where the hobbits are. The first one was what struck Frodo blind in The Taming of Smeagol. It says, suddenly all three halted, stiffening and listening. To Frodo and Sam it seemed they heard far away a long wailing cry, high, thin, and cruel. They shivered. At the same moment, the stirring of the air became perceptible to them, and it grew very cold. As they stood straining their ears, they heard a noise, like a wind coming in the distance. The misty lights wavered, dimmed, and went out. So the candles are extinguished.
Oh, I didn't note that.
It's almost like they're running away from this winged steed as well.
And there's that wind again. The wind came the last time, too.
It says, a small cloud flying from the accursed hills, a black shadow loose from Mordor, a vast shape, winged and ominous. It scuttered across the moon and with a deadly cry went away westward, outrunning the wind in its fell speed. This rightfully freaks out Gollum. He goes, Wraiths! Wraiths on wings! The Precious is their master. They see everything, everything. Nothing can hide from them. Curse the white face. And they tell him everything. He sees. He knows.
Yeah, curse the white face. That's the moon. But they tell him everything is Sauron. But to Gollum, any light is a chance of being discovered.
Seen. Yeah.
Right? His true desire is to be alone, almost to like exist in some kind of oblivion with the ring.
Yeah. I mean, he's been buried under the earth in a lightless, island on this pool for hundreds of years.
Now Sam notes another change in Gollum. All this friendliness, is, I think, to Sam always an act. But he's more worried, I think, about Frodo's wariness and his, the closer they get to Mordor, the more he drags. And
yeah, it's becoming like actually a physical weight, ever increasing is what it says.
And Sam is begging Gollum to wait.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually is kind of walking behind Frodo and is constantly kind of helping him along. And then we're told that Frodo does feel the chain on his neck become more burdensome, like an actual weight dragging him earthwards.
Yeah.
But then Frodo's even more troubled by the eye because he senses the hostile will, it says, of Sauron. And this is where we started the chapter, that it can see you, that it can see cloud and earth and flesh, like even to like the depths of your soul in some way. And there are veils that ward it off, but the veils are becoming thinner and thinner. And I thought there about the way that the ring stretched out Bilbo's life, but not with more life, just with thinner life.
Yeah.
And maybe that's kind of part of what Frodo's experiencing here, that the veil or the robustness of his own will becomes less because of the presence of the ring.
Yes.
It says that with the same certainty that a man can tell the direction of the sun with his eyes shut, he was facing it, and its potency beat upon his brow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the same potency that the same, I think, sense of dread that we've heard about before. Even when they were on the river, they felt that sense of dread increasing, and now they're only drawing closer to it.
Yes. Yeah. After this, reflection on the sort of the growing physical weight of Frodo's burden and the way that all of them are sort of naked before the eye of Sauron and they could feel his presence, they make their way out of these noisome fens, these smelly marshes, and there's a bit of a like jump in time. I don't know if you noticed this. It says,
Yeah, I did.
At last, on the 5th morning since they took the road with Gollum, they halted once more. So, we've been kind of moving at like a day by day pace with the 3 hunters. We had all those chapters with them, and I think it's only like 10 days or so that we get for all those chapters. And here they've jumped forward in time by 5 days, just pretty quickly. It says, Frodo looked around in horror. Dreadful as the Dead Marshes had been, and the arid moors of the no-man lands, more loathsome far was the country that the crawling day now slowly unveiled to his shrinking eyes. Beautiful prose. Even to the mirror of dead faces, some haggard phantom of green spring would come, but here neither spring nor summer would ever come again. Here nothing lived, not even the leprous growths that fed on rottenness.
I think desert, it uses the word desert at least once, maybe twice. And I think that desert is, and it's like blasted.
Yes.
And it's not the natural condition the land would be in.
No, it's just like a permanently scarred, evil place. It says they had come to the desolation that lay before Mordor.
Yeah, here, this short paragraph sort of being set apart is, I think, really impactful. That it starts that way, that they've come up before this desolation. The lasting monument to the dark labor of its slaves that should endure when all their purposes were made void. So even after Sauron and his forces pass away in the world, this will still be there. A land defiled, diseased upon all healing, unless the great sea should enter in and wash it with oblivion, which happens, or has already happened, to another land, right?
Beleriand.
He's kind of saying, like, only if the gods come and decide to wash this with a great flood, can it be changed. And it makes Sam sick to his stomach. I feel sick. And Frodo can't even speak, and they just stand there and kind of behold it.
Says the gasping pits and poisonous mounds grew hideously clear. The sun was up, walking among clouds and long flags of smoke, but even the sunlight was defiled. The hobbits had no welcome for that light. Unfriendly it seemed, revealing them in their helplessness, little squeaking ghosts that wandered among the ash heaps of the Dark Lord.
Yeah, Tolkien really highlights how small they are in the face of this.
And so they have to stop to rest. And Sam and Frodo, they drink only a few drops from their bottles because they only have a little bit of water left from their time in the gully where Gollum said that the water was safe to drink. And Sam and Frodo sleep. It was Frodo's turn to be on guard. He lay back on the slope of the pit, but that did not ease the sense of burden that was on him. He lost count of time, hovering between sleep and waking, until forgetfulness came over him. And so, despite their promise to both keep a careful watch on Gollum, now this is the second time they've both fallen asleep at the same time.
Yeah, totally exhausted.
So Sam wakes up with a start. Says that he thought that he heard Frodo calling him, but it couldn't be because Frodo was asleep. But he sees Gollum talking to himself. It says Smeagol was holding a debate with some other thought that used the same voice, but made it squeak and hiss. A pale light and a green light alternated in his eyes as he spoke. So this is the kind of internal debate between what Tolkien calls a pale light and a green light. And I think we can make it out that we have the Gollum and we have the Smeagol.
I remember very clearly watching this in the movie theater. This debate scene. And
nobody likes you. You don't have any friends.
Yeah, and the audience really yucking it up.
Yeah. It's played for laughs.
And it's played for laughs, but I found it so disturbing, and I found it doubly disturbing that the audience just laughed. And maybe that comes out of some kind of discomfort or something like that. But
yeah.
And I was a youth, I guess, or young man when this came out, but maybe, I don't know. I was a sensitive boy, just like Sam was. And gosh, it really disturbed me. And it still disturbs me to think about it. And the scene is so disturbing. Now I have a little bit more life experience and some experience with people who have a personality kind of like Gollum. And it really is, I think, just tragic and horrible. I don't think it's uncommon in human experience to be divided against yourself this way. But it's rare to have it so clearly externalized in the way that Smeagol/Gollum is here. And I think it's tragic, and it just makes me feel grief for Smeagol, who has a chance, I think, in these 2 short chapters, and who is ultimately lost to his own inability to integrate these 2 parts of his personality. And to have Sam as witness, Sam is the wrong person to witness this. It's too bad that Frodo didn't witness it in some way.
His divided nature, I think it's important to point out that it's not like the good side versus the bad side. I mean, like, Smeagol is, still like irreparably broken.
And Smeagol was kind of a rotten character before he found the ring too. We find that out earlier, but yeah.
But he has this like internal struggle where you hear the words that he spoke in his oath, the promise, being twisted to suit his own desires. He says Smeagol promised to help the master. And then the more evil side of his nature says, yes, to help the master of the precious. But if we was the master, then we can help ourselves. Yes, and still keep the promise. So there's this twisted, like, mirror version of this promise he made to serve Frodo. And he goes, yeah, but we didn't say Frodo. We said the master of the precious. And if we were the master of the precious, then we would be serving ourselves. And he goes, let's be good. Good as fish, sweet one, but to ourselves. So that's high praise from Gollum to be good as fish.
Yeah, it's the highest praise.
He says, not hurt the nice hobbit, of course. No. And then Smeagol says, and I think this is really important, but the precious holds the promise. The voice of Smeagol objected. Remember that in the last chapter, Frodo quotes the ring verse to Gollum. It says, in the darkness binds them. He says, the precious will hold the promise. And it will twist your words to evil purposes if you're not careful.
Right.
So Smeagol knows that. He goes, the precious holds the promise. Then Gollum says, then take it. Let's hold it to ourselves. Then we shall be the master. And he says, make the other hobbit, the nasty, suspicious hobbit, make him crawl. It's dark stuff.
Yeah.
Smeagol recognizes, the eye is watching. And so he's convinced that Sauron himself, he has seen the promise that he made and that he's going to be punished for it because he was tasked with going out to find the ring and bring it back to Sauron.
Yeah, interesting.
He goes, he'll see, capital He. He'll know. He'll take it from us. He sees, he knows. He heard us make silly promises against his orders, yes. The wraiths are searching. And the Gollum voice responds, no, sweet one. See, my precious, if we has it, then we can escape, even from him. Perhaps we grows very strong, stronger than wraiths. Lord Smeagol, Gollum the Great, the Gollum, eat fish every day, 3 times a day, fresh from the sea. Most precious Gollum. We wants it. We wants it. We wants it. So that's that delusion that the ring gives Gollum. He doesn't imagine himself as a leader or, the ruler of the world. His greatest thing that he can imagine for himself is that he would be strong enough to have fish 3 times a day.
Fish 3 times a day. And so he hatches a plan.
Yes.
We can take them to her. She might help. She might, yes. And at this point in the story, we have no idea who that is. But it's very evocative, and to bring in kind of like a feminine counterpart in some way to
the Dark Lord,
is kind of like completes the threat in some way for us, and the threat that the hobbits are facing. That on one side we have this like masculine will, and on the other some kind of feminine threat that Gollum is going to lead them into.
And it's so interesting that Sam hears him lay out his plan. He doesn't know all the details, but it's incredible to me that Sam lets him. I mean, he tells Frodo about all this, like, surely.
Yeah.
But it's incredible to me that they still allow him to be their leader, even after hearing him openly say that he's going to betray them.
But what can they do? They
have no other choice. Yeah.
The only choice they have is to follow Smeagol, and then to hope that they can, like you said, like farm some good out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sam just wonders.
Yeah.
We know who he is, but who is she? And
in the throes of this internal debate, Gollum sort of extends his hands and flexes his fingers and claws towards Frodo's neck. And that's when Sam, kind of snaps out of it.
Right.
He, rather than like, jumping and, arresting Gollum on the spot, he lets out a loud sigh and gives a huge yawn. Says, what's the time? He says. So there he is asking what the time is again. Same thing Frodo said last time.
It's funny, like, Frodo's like the light that Smeagol and Sam orbit. Smeagol picks up Frodo's verbiage, and so does Sam. So here again, he says, "What's the time?" He calls Smeagol a poor wretch. He gets that from Frodo, and even when he's kind of dissembling himself here, what's the time? And Gollum hisses and sort of snaps out of that, whatever that grasping was toward Frodo. Nice hobbits, nice Sam, sleepyheads, yes, sleepyheads. Leave good Smeagol to watch, but it's evening. Dusk is creeping. Time to go. But Frodo is strangely refreshed. And we don't get to hear about his dream, but it says that he was visited by a fair vision in this land of disease, and his heart was lighter.
What do you think this is? Do you think this is the Valar giving Frodo a respite in his sleep?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe he had a vision of the sea or something.
Or maybe Gandalf has bent his will on Frodo and given him some sort of grace. I think it's more likely that, similarly, he gets... Basically, anytime Frodo dreams, I think we should take note of it. It's been a long time since we've had a Frodo dream. In the House of Tom Bombadil, he has a really cool one.
This is total conjecture. I have no idea how this works out with the timing, but we're told that it moves forward 5 days.
So I'd make it March 6th.
Yeah, when the hunters meet Gandalf sort of stretches out his...
Well, I'm going to stop you there because he says he's beyond my...
Yeah, I know he's beyond, but he still like stretches out his like mind, and like maybe that sort of like, sort of like still, even though he can't reach Frodo, he sort of still like visits Frodo with something. It's like a prayer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I do think that anytime Frodo dreams, before this point, we've been given more kind of like direct ideas that like Frodo is being visited by something from the Valar. But certainly here, this is
even being given like images of his own future.
Yeah. But in this case, he awakes so refreshed, and it's so mysterious. I think that it has to be
a grace of the Valar.
Yeah, some kind of grace.
Frodo says, "Come, you've guided us well and faithfully. This is the last stage. Bring us to the gate, and I will not ask you to go further. Bring us to the gate, and you may go where you wish, only not to our enemies." Gollum says that he won't go, but Sam sort of forces him to march. He goes, "Go on with you. Let's get it over with." And they push on for another hour or so, and Gollum becomes like overwhelmed with terror and is completely immobilized, refuses to move. It says Gollum, however, was helpless with terror and was convinced that they were being hunted and that their approach was known. Do they hear another high-pitched, yeah?
Yeah, the fear falls on them a third time, and a winged shape sweeps over the marshes.
And so Gollum becomes convinced that they're being hunted, and he says 3 times is a threat. They feel us here. They feel the precious. The precious is their master. We cannot go any further this way. It's no use. And it says it was not until Frodo commanded him angrily and laid a hand on his sword hilt that Gollum would get up again. Then at last he rose with a snarl and went before them like a beaten dog. Do you want to read the closing paragraph?
Yeah. So they stumbled on through the weary end of the night, and until the coming of another day of fear, they walked in silence with bowed heads, seeing nothing and hearing nothing but the wind hissing in their ears.
Thanks for reading along with us this week. Join us next week for Book 4, Chapter 3, The Black Gate is Closed. If you want to help us out, share this podcast with a Lord of the Rings fan in your life. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. Subscribe on YouTube. And visit waywardwizards.com for more info.
And until next week, remember, don't follow the tricksy lights.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.